One of the sites we visited for this series is an incredible pyramid in Mexico at a place called Cholula.
Beneath the quiet hills of Mexico lies a secret that has baffled scientists for decades: the Great Pyramid of Cholula. Once thought to be just an ancient temple, it has revealed something far more mysterious: hidden chambers, strange vibrations, and metallic forms buried deep underground suggest the pyramid might be more than a monument. What researchers discovered inside could rewrite history. Join us as we uncover this new discovery and why it matters to the world. The Pyramid Hill. For hundreds of years, the people of Cholula in Mexico believed a gentle hill stood proudly beside their town. It looked calm and ordinary, covered in soft green grass, with a little church sitting quietly at its top, the Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de los Remedios. Everyone called it El Cerrito, meaning the little hill. To them, it was simply part of the landscape, a peaceful rise of earth that had always been there. But what they didn't know was that this hill was no hill at all. Beneath its quiet surface slept the largest pyramid on Earth, a hidden giant so massive that it could fit the Great Pyramid of Giza inside it twice. Long ago, in the early 1500s, when the Spanish conquerors spread across the Americas, they destroyed the sacred temples and gods of the indigenous people, believing only their own faith had power. When Hernán Cortés and his soldiers arrived in Cholula in 1519, they thought they were seeing just another town to conquer. But what stood before them was strange. It wasn't a work of nature at all, but of people who had lived long before, builders with skill and purpose. The Spanish explorers were shocked. The structure beneath them was far larger than any monument they had ever seen, even greater than the pyramids of Egypt. It wasn't just its size that unsettled them. It was the mystery of who built it, why it had been buried, and what secrets might still lie inside. Historical records written later by colonial priests described how some of them dared to explore part of the hidden pyramid. They wandered through its dark passages, their torches flickering against ancient walls painted with colors and symbols they didn't understand. When they emerged, they sealed the tunnels behind them, leaving the secret untouched once more. What they discovered inside, the records suggested, challenged their deepest beliefs about the origins of the world. So for centuries, the people of Cholula lived beside this silent wonder, never realizing that beneath their feet lay the forgotten heart of a civilization. The little hill they loved so dearly was in fact a buried story, one that had waited patiently through time, wind, and faith for someone brave enough to uncover the truth. Long ago, letters written by Spanish priests spoke of strange things they had seen inside the hidden pyramid of Cholula. They described mysterious chambers of wind and fire, and machines of the heavens, words that sounded dangerous to the beliefs of their time. Those writings quietly vanished, locked away, or lost in archives. The church could not allow such tales to spread. So, instead of destroying the pyramid like they did to other temples, the Spanish rulers made a different decision. They would make it disappear. In 1594, they ordered the pyramid to be buried beneath layers of soil and grass, covering every trace of its sacred stone. Then, on top of the mound, they built a bright yellow church, the Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de los Remedios, a shining Christian crown planted firmly over an ancient indigenous body. The act was both clever and cruel. The holy hill became a symbol of victory, hiding beneath it the memory of another faith that had once thrived. Over time, people forgot what lay below. Travelers and missionaries who passed by only saw the church, never questioning the hill beneath it. The real pyramid fell into silence, covered by stories, myths, and guilt. Yet, among the local Nahua and Mixtec people, quiet whispers survived. They told of tunnels that breathed, of chambers that hummed softly beneath the earth, and of sleeping gods buried deep under the church's foundation. Some claim that on certain nights the ground glowed faintly and trembled, as if something alive was stirring below. Only the bravest ever dared to find out. Centuries later, in the late 1800s, the mystery of the hill began to return. Scholars who studied the land noticed that something about its shape seemed too perfect to be natural. Then, by accident, when workers dug into the slope for irrigation, they uncovered pieces of pottery and stone. Still, no one could imagine the size of what was hidden there. It wasn't until 1931 that the truth finally rose again. Mexican archaeologist Ignacio Marquina led a team to study the site. When he tested the ground, his instruments returned nothing, just emptiness beneath the soil. That was the first clue. As they dug deeper, layer by layer, the hidden giant began to emerge. What they uncovered stunned the world. A pyramid stretching almost 450 meters on each side and rising 66 meters high, larger by volume than any structure humans had ever built. The discovery shook historians. For centuries, people had walked over this buried wonder, praying at the church above, never realizing they stood atop one of the greatest creations of ancient humanity. The hill had never been a hill at all. It was a secret kept by the earth for 2,000 years, waiting patiently for someone brave enough to uncover it. And when the archaeologists finally opened its stony heart, the world learned that history still holds riddles powerful enough to rewrite everything we thought we understood about the ancient world, the pyramid of many people. When archaeologist Ignacio Marquina began digging into the Great Mound of Cholula in the 1930s, he expected to find just one buried temple. What he discovered instead was something far more extraordinary, a monument built layer upon layer, like time itself. It was as if different worlds had been stacked together, each civilization leaving behind its own mark, its own dream. The Great Pyramid of Cholula was not born all at once. It grew over nearly 1,000 years, changing with every generation that touched it. At its core lay the first pyramid, called Tlachihualtepetl, which means artificial mountain in the ancient Nahuatl language. It was built around 300 BCE, likely by the Olmec Xicalanga people, using sun-dried bricks made of volcanic clay. Unlike the pyramids of power found in other lands, this one was designed with precision and purpose, its axis perfectly aligned with the rising sun at the spring equinox. It was not just a temple, it was a clock of the cosmos, keeping time long before written calendars were even imagined. But time never stops building. As new peoples arrived, the Zapotecs, Mixtecs, Toltecs, and later the Aztecs, each saw the site as sacred and added their own layer to it. None of them destroyed what came before. Instead, they built upon it, carefully encasing the older pyramids within newer shells. In this way, Cholula became a living structure, a growing monument that carried the memory of every age within it. When Marquina's team tunneled into the mound, they were not just digging through earth, they were cutting through history. The outer walls revealed the sharp red clay and detailed artwork of the Mixtec era, while deeper inside lay smoother ochre bricks made centuries earlier. Each layer showed how human hands had learned, adapted, and evolved. The pyramid's scale was staggering, 450 meters on each side, 66 meters tall, with more than 4.4 million cubic meters of material. It was larger by volume than any structure ever made, all crafted without machines or modern tools, just strength, patience, and faith. As archaeologists dug deeper, the secrets of its builders began to unfold. They found altars positioned with the stars, stairways that faced the solstice sun, and murals painted with serpents, maize, and sacred fire. It was not a tomb, but a cosmic map, a picture of life, death, and rebirth, carved into stone. Even after their old temples had fallen, the peoples of Mesoamerica kept their knowledge of the skies alive. The Toltecs later redesigned parts of the pyramid to match the movements of the planet Venus. Centuries later, the Aztecs honored Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, their god of wisdom and renewal, by dedicating the pyramid to him. To them, Cholula was not made by mortals, but by giants who had once shaped mountains to mirror the heavens. When the Spanish arrived in 1519, they saw not wisdom, but danger. To them, this massive temple was heresy, a threat to their faith. Destroying it outright would have sparked rebellion, so they chose instead to bury it. They covered it with earth until it appeared as a natural hill and built a church on top to mark their triumph. Yet even under that crown of faith, the pyramid remained, silent, hidden, and eternal. Modern engineers still marvel at its brilliance. Built without metal or cement, its layered structure has survived countless earthquakes and floods, remaining as solid as the day it was made. It seems almost alive, as if it was built to outlast every civilization that touched it. Today, the Pyramid of Cholula stands as one of the richest archaeological treasures in the Americas, a living museum where art, science, and spirituality from many cultures have blended into one continuous story. But what makes it truly magical is not just its size or its age, it's what lies beneath. Deep within its heart runs a maze of tunnels, winding like veins through the earth, echoing the stars above. It is as if the ancient builders carved the sky into the ground, leaving behind a message that time itself has yet to fully translate. When archaeologist Ignacio Marquina began digging into the heart of the Great Pyramid of Cholula, he expected to find simple layers of history, just walls, stairways, and buried rooms. But what his team uncovered was something far more astonishing. Beneath the pyramid lay an entire world, a labyrinth of tunnels stretching deep and wide under the earth. To this day, over 8 kilometers of these tunnels have been mapped, yet modern radar scans suggest that this is only a small part of a much greater network still hidden below. These passages were not the result of excavation or decay. They were part of the original design, created thousands of years ago by minds that seemed to think in geometry rather than stone. Each tunnel followed a precise pattern, radiating outward from the pyramid's core, like veins from a living heart. Some stretched toward the rising sun, others vanished into shadow, and many cut diagonally through the underground chambers in perfect symmetry. When archaeologists later traced their layout on a map, they realized something breathtaking. The tunnels mirrored the constellations in the night sky. The paths below matched the positions of Orion, the Pleiades, and Venus during ancient celestial events. It became clear that the builders had not only raised a temple to the heavens, they had recreated the heavens beneath the ground itself. Inside those tunnels, the air was dense and still, heavy with the scent of earth and time. Every footstep echoed strangely, as though the walls themselves were breathing. The surfaces glistened with moisture, and when the archaeologists whispered, their voices bent and stretched in eerie ways. A single murmur could travel across chambers, growing louder until it seemed to come from the earth itself. Later, sound experts confirmed what Marquina's team had only sensed. The tunnels had been engineered for sound, creating shifting echoes that matched natural frequencies. In some chambers, a single clap produced echoes that imitated the call of the sacred Quetzal bird, just as in the temples of Chichen Itza. In others, faint whispers rolled into deep, thunderous tones. The pyramid wasn't just a structure, it was an instrument that could sing. As Marquina's team explored further, they found that the pyramid's design extended beyond stone and sound. The tunnels were equipped with ancient systems that controlled air and water. Dome-shaped chambers balanced air pressure to prevent collapse, while old water channels still guided moisture through the earth even after 2,000 years. The precision of this engineering stunned modern scientists. It was every bit as advanced as what had been achieved in Egypt or Mesopotamia. It seemed to blend science, spirit, and nature into a single breathtaking harmony. In one section, Marquina's team discovered sealed doorways covered with ancient bricks, marked by strange symbols, older than any known Mesoamerican writing. On one wall, they found a painting of a serpent swallowing the sun, a symbol of death and rebirth, but perhaps also a warning of some forgotten power. Marquina noted in his journals that certain doors appeared deliberately sealed, as if their contents were not meant to be disturbed. Modern researchers have since entered these same tunnels with new tools, and their findings have only deepened the mystery. Some shafts align exactly with the sunrise and sunset during the equinoxes. For just a few minutes each year, sunlight pierces the darkness and floods the innermost chambers, illuminating carvings that have been unseen for centuries. The builders had mastered not only stone, but also the flow of light, air, and sound with a precision that feels almost scientific. Deep within one of those shadowed corridors, archaeologists discovered something even more bewildering: a mural hidden for centuries, filled with symbols and scenes so complex that they seemed to rewrite whatever message it carried. It was clear that the people who built Cholula were not just worshippers of the sky, but interpreters of the universe. The mural Out of Time. In 1969, deep beneath the Great Pyramid of Cholula, workers clearing out one of the narrow underground chambers struck what looked like an ordinary wall. It was coated in smooth plaster and seemed no different from the hundreds of others that crisscrossed the pyramid's tunnels. But when the light from their lamps brushed across the surface, Colors began to appear through the dust, faint at first, then brighter. Shades of red, gold, and black glimmered like trapped firelight, revealing a painting that had been asleep for 2,000 years. What the workers uncovered that day stretched nearly 57 meters across the wall. It would soon be called El Mural de los Bebedores, the mural of the drinkers. At first glance, the mural appeared to tell a simple story: a group of figures sitting in a circle, sharing pulque, the sacred drink made from the agave plant. Their faces showed every emotion of celebration, joy, solemnity, and trance. But as archaeologists studied the sequence, something deeper began to take shape. Across the mural, the figures started to transform. Their bodies stretched and twisted, skin markings turned into geometric spirals, and their eyes grew large and radiant. Some melted into swirling patterns of stars and light, while others seemed to merge with animals, jaguars, eagles, amphibians. It wasn't random art. The change followed a precise order, a step-by-step transformation that looked more like a process than a party. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Florencia Müller, believed the mural wasn't simply decorative. In her notes, she described it as a kind of manual painted in color. To her, each figure represented a stage of spiritual or physical transformation, a map of the human journey beyond the ordinary self. Chemical tests on the pigments gave her theory more weight. They contained traces of substances linked to hallucinogenic plants, the seeds of ololiuqui from morning glory vines, known to have been used in ancient rituals. But to everyone's surprise, the samples also revealed tiny amounts of compounds similar to harmaline and acacia derivatives, plants found not in the Americas, but in Africa and the Middle East. There were no known trade routes that could explain how such materials reached Mexico 2 millennia ago. Some scholars dismissed the results, calling them contamination. Others saw in them hints of a forgotten past, a time when ancient cultures may have shared knowledge across oceans long before written history. Still, what fascinated everyone most was not the chemistry, but the design of the mural itself. In the 1970s, when researchers digitally reconstructed the fragments, they noticed an astonishing pattern. The sequence of transformations followed a rhythm that matched the movements of Venus across the sky. Each section of the mural aligned perfectly with one of Venus's 10 key positions during its celestial cycle, the planet long associated with death, rebirth, and enlightenment. The mural wasn't just art, it was astronomy, psychology, and chemistry woven into one. Dr. Müller called it the first biochemical textbook, a record of how ancient people might have linked the stars, the body, and the mind into one system of understanding. If her interpretation were true, it would mean that the builders of Cholula had mastered a science of consciousness far beyond what history has ever credited to them, a science that united the heavens above and the soul within. Only months after the discovery, the chamber was sealed for preservation, and foreign researchers who requested access were denied entry. The mural has remained closed to the public ever since. Those few who have seen it describe an experience unlike any other. They say the air inside the chamber hums faintly, as if charged with invisible energy. The walls seem to pulse with a low vibration when touched, and under artificial light, the plaster gives off a subtle sound, soft, almost musical. One observer wrote that standing before it felt like being inside a thought that wasn't your own. To some, El Mural de los Bebedores represents a lost ceremony, a visual ritual guiding souls toward the heavens. To others, it's a coded message, a hidden record of how consciousness evolves. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the mural was only the beginning. As researchers continued their work deeper within the pyramid's sealed chambers, they uncovered more than paintings. They found artifacts made from metals so advanced in design and composition that they seemed centuries ahead of their time, objects that should not have existed in the ancient world at all, secrets that still speak. It was the late 1960s, and deep beneath the quiet city of Cholula, Mexico, something extraordinary was unfolding. For years, Ignacio Marquina and his team had been exploring the endless maze of tunnels hidden inside the Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid on Earth. The deeper they went, the more the pyramid seemed to whisper secrets from another age, as if guarding truths that human minds were not yet ready to handle. In 1965, while workers were clearing one of the lower passages, their tools struck something solid. It wasn't stone or clay like they expected, it was metal. When they brushed off the dirt, they uncovered a group of strange objects, chisels, rods, and blades, made from a silvery material that gleamed even after centuries underground. The metal was too smooth, too sharp, and too perfect for anything made by hand. At first, the researchers thought the tools might have been left by the Spanish, but it was over 1,000 years older than the Spanish conquest. When the metal was analyzed, scientists discovered traces of nickel and chromium, elements that no ancient civilization in the Americas was known to have used. It was a mystery that made no sense. Within days, the government took control of the site, and the artifacts were quietly removed. Official reports called them unidentified instruments, but Marquina's private notes told a different story. He wrote that the metal seemed too perfect to be man-made, as though it had been poured and shaped using technology far beyond what history allowed. 2 years later, in 1967, a new discovery left the team even more puzzled. Inside a sealed chamber, they found a set of ceramic discs etched with precise geometric designs. When tapped, the discs produced ringing tones that echoed beautifully through the tunnels. Later studies showed that the frequencies of those tones matched the same ones used today in sound therapy, vibrations that interact naturally with the human voice. How could a civilization that lived 2,000 years ago have known so much about sound and resonance? Then came another discovery. A broken stone slab was found showing people gazing at the stars through what looked like telescopes. The carving showed constellations, eclipses, and planetary movements, scenes that suggested deep knowledge of astronomy. While traditional archaeologists dismissed it as a symbolic design, others believed it was proof that Cholula had once been an ancient school of science, a place where people studied the skies, numbers, and vibrations long before written history began. That belief grew stronger when Marquina's team found something he called La Biblioteca de Piedra, the Library of Stone. Thousands of carved blocks covered in mathematical and astronomical patterns were uncovered. When researchers analyzed the shapes decades later with digital tools, they realized many of them followed the same fractal patterns used in modern geometry, patterns not discovered by formal science until the 20th century. If the carvings were real, they suggested that the builders of Cholula were not just architects, but thinkers, far ahead of their time. But the discoveries were quickly buried again. The artifacts were removed, the tunnels sealed. The reason given was preservation, but many suspected the truth was being hidden, perhaps because it challenged too much of what history had taught. By 1971, Marquina's work was halted completely, and government orders sealed most of the pyramid's passages. Decades later, modern technology returned to the pyramid. Scientists using radar and 3D imaging found something that turned their excitement into fear. Beneath everything, deeper than any known chamber, lay a vast, perfectly round space about 100 meters wide. Inside it, the scans detected materials that looked metallic, mixed with something organic. It was named La Cámara del Corazón, the Chamber of the Heart. This wasn't a tomb. It wasn't even a temple. Every tunnel seemed to lead toward it, as if the pyramid had been built around a single center, like veins feeding a brain. Some experts began to believe Cholula wasn't just a place of worship, but a vast archive of human knowledge, a living library designed to protect wisdom across ages. Archaeologists found fragments with star maps, complex numbers, and clay pieces coated with microscopic glass, something no known ancient culture could have produced. Quietly, people began to call the site La Universidad Perdida, the Lost University. Every layer of the pyramid seemed to record a chapter of human progress. The Olmecs, Zapotecs, Mixtecs, and Aztecs didn't destroy the work of their predecessors. They added to it, each generation building upon the knowledge of the last. Some researchers discovered that the entire pyramid had been built like a giant musical instrument. The tunnels were designed to carry sound perfectly, as though knowledge itself was meant to be shared through vibration, not writing. When scientists recreated the acoustics using old blueprints, They found the pyramid's tones followed exact harmonic ratios, the same ones later described by Pythagoras thousands of years later in Greece. Living stones from the past. By 2018, the whispers around the Great Pyramid of Cholula had turned into a storm. What had started as a simple archaeological site was no longer just history, it was a puzzle. Scientists using advanced ground-penetrating radar confirmed the presence of a vast, untouched chamber hidden deep inside the pyramid. The data surprised everyone. It showed perfect geometry, straight walls, evenly spaced pillars, and 3 layers that reflected radar differently. One metallic, one stone, and one that seemed strangely organic. At first, researchers rejoiced. They thought they had found an ancient engineering marvel, but that excitement didn't last. As soon as more equipment was brought in, the instruments began to fail one after another. Magnetometers flickered wildly, as if something underground was beating, slow, steady, and alive. It wasn't random noise. The earth itself seemed to be breathing. Locals who lived near the site started to report strange sensations, vibrations under their feet, a quiet hum that rose at dusk, and even tingling on their skin when they passed by the pyramid. Officials quickly dismissed it all as technical interference, yet nearby seismic stations began picking up faint tremors, repeating every 42 seconds. The exact same rhythm once mentioned in Marquina's old notes on subterranean harmonics. Soon after, the government stepped in. They announced that the structure was too unstable for further excavation and sealed off the tunnels that led to the chamber. Armed guards appeared overnight. To outsiders, it looked like protection, but to the locals, it felt like containment. Before the lockdown, a few brave researchers leaked what they had seen. Deep inside the newly discovered chamber, called La Cámara del Corazón, the Chamber of the Heart, lay 2 human-shaped forms resting side by side. They were surrounded by a metallic grid made of an unknown alloy, its pattern too precise to have been made by hand. Between them sat a smooth, cylindrical object, about a meter long. Some scientists believed it was a capsule. Others called it the core. If real, this find could completely rewrite what humanity knew about ancient engineering and burial practices. The energy readings coming from that chamber were even more mysterious. They pulsed gently, following the same rhythm as the vibrations detected in the pyramid's upper halls. It was as though the entire structure was alive, breathing in harmony with whatever rested below. Researchers began to wonder if the pyramid was ever a tomb at all, or if it was something else entirely. Perhaps it was a kind of machine, built to preserve energy, sustain life, or protect something sacred. Media outlets turned it into headlines. Spiritual groups claimed that Cholula was awakening, that it was an ancient consciousness stirring after thousands of years. Scientists rolled their eyes. But what happened next made even the skeptics uneasy. Within days of the radar scans, Puebla experienced small tremors, all centered directly beneath the pyramid. Every quake followed the same 42-second rhythm. To this day, La Cámara del Corazón remains sealed. Officials continue to say the site is too unstable for excavation, promising that work will continue when conditions are safe. But behind the scenes, many researchers whisper about stranger findings, fluctuating magnetic fields, changing energy patterns, and shifts that seem to come from deep below the pyramid, as if something beneath is moving, responding, or perhaps awakening. The Great Pyramid of Cholula has always stood as a monument to faith and mystery, but now it might be something more, a doorway to knowledge humanity has forgotten. Whatever lies in the chamber of the heart remains unknown. But one thing is certain, the story of Cholula is far from over. What happens next could change everything we think we know about the ancient world and about ourselves. Now, what do you think about the recent discovery? Let's hear from you in the comments. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.